it, run it back. And all these snakes in the grass trying to shake my hand, trying to play me for a sucker so I blow his cap. And all this hating you been showing got you looking bad. Flexing VVS chains with your boosting ass. I got my bank account booming cause I'm saving stacks. Getting rich been the motive with your hating ass. Talking down on my name but it's a proven fact. Keep it on me at all times, ain't got a question. Hey, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed, and like I always say, it's one life, one chance. When they got one chance to do this right, let's get it done. So with that being said, just woke up to an actual very good question. You know what I mean? At first I was kind of feeling like, I was getting challenged a little bit. He was kind of hitting me from a different angle, but then the more and more I read the question, the more and more I realized, like, no, he's actually asking me a genuine question, an honest question. So thought I might get into that. Just got done drinking my coffee, about to go to work in an hour. I only get like 2 hours to myself sometimes, but hey, 9 to 5, man, count my blessings still. So with that being said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, always leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. So my subscriber asked me this. Said, you seem like a cool individual, but I take it you love being a gang member. You enjoy all the destruction and drama that came with it. It appears you dominated in prison. You seem to love the life, but the tables turned on you. My question is, did you change your ways because you could no longer dominate like you once did, or did you change your ways because you realized it was just morally wrong to be a bad person and do bad things? Very good question. See, the thing about it is, there was a point in time, maybe almost a year before my removal, when I started noticing things. And it wasn't until I finally got back from out of state in California, and I actually celled up with an hermano who was currently in the process of becoming a C, when I started realizing that there was something different. Because we were using drugs. I was bringing in after I had busted a couple moves, we were bringing in some extracurricular activities, some stuff to mess around with, be up all night. But that's when I started seeing the aggressive side of him, and I started seeing the tox. And I remember him telling me, that the NF homies, that oftentimes these drugs that we're sending to the back, Corcoran and Pelican Bay, it wasn't to make them money like that. I always thought it was. I always thought it was just, they were going to get high, but most of it was going to be used to make money and keep their book stacked, as well as us sending money to their books. But he started laughing at me, and he was like, bro, most of my big homies are dope fiends. He goes, man, they don't care about none of that. They just want to get high. They're back there. They're stuck back there. They ain't coming out. They ain't got nothing else to do. They're getting high, so why can't we get high out here? What's the difference? Why we got to know the hard drug policy, but back there, everything we send back there, we're feeding their veins. He goes, don't believe it. Don't believe it like these individuals are perfect. And I remember sitting there drinking a cup of Pruno, like, no kidding. Like, it ain't. I was still learning, but I was still blind. I always wanted to see everything as being perfect. You don't see the drama. You don't see the demolishment towards your people until you get high in the ranks, until you start making decisions, until you start messing with individuals who took their leadership positions to their head. Once I started realizing that that's what the arena looked like, that's what the environment was looking like, that's what our leadership was looking like, two things happened to me. I realized that I couldn't play that same game without becoming bad myself. Machiavelli said that same thing. Niccolo Machiavelli said the same thing. You can't be a good person when everybody else is being bad people. That you have to play as a bad person and be the same way, or else they're going to take you down. That there was no room for goodness when it comes to politics. So I became that same person, and I allowed it to destroy myself. So in the midst of destroying my people and demolishing my people, I was destroying myself mentally because I felt like I had a rule with an iron fist like everybody else in order to survive. See, everything about prison is a survival game. I could sit there and play the moralistic standpoint, and I would still have been overpowered by my own people, by my own brotherhood, because they're going to feel like whatever's right, whatever's necessary. And if I'm conflicting with their interests, with their agenda, with their motives, with their leadership, it's not that hard to fabricate evidence and build an investigation and create a case to get people removed. In the same sense that if you watch Paradigm Media News, think about what Kwete Rubakaba did to certain individuals that were investigating him during his embezzlement charges. Well, how many individuals he got greenlighted just to cover up his own actions, and a lot of individuals, went forth with that with those removals, with those green lights, just based on the fact of who he was, an intern, acting general, becoming a general, his political power, his leadership. Sometimes it's just the art of persuasion. Sometimes it's just being a heavy influenced individual that can overpower you. See, it from the outside point of view, it just looks like we're all gangbanging, we're all taking each other out, we're all using these man-made laws to hurt one another. And in a sense, it does look like that, and it is that. But when you're in the midst of all of it, we all convince ourselves that it's right, it's necessary, it's what needs to be done, that it's for righteous reasons. That's the fact that we're blind to, is that we believe that everything we're doing are righteous reasons. So back then, you couldn't really tell me that what I was doing was wrong when I felt like it was necessary, when I've been told, when I've been brainwashed and it's been embedded in me mentally to think that way, that what we're doing is right, this is necessary, this is for the betterment. And this lifestyle, unless you lived it, it's hard to judge it from an outside standpoint, because you're only going to see the black and white. All these individuals are just making laws and hurting one another. These individuals are just creating these leadership positions only to abuse them. Trust me, I've looked at it from both angles. I want to identify myself as a dominating factor because, even though I've held high-ranking CLC positions, like my mom always said, man, there's always going to be somebody bigger and better than you. And there's always going to be somebody that's going to take you out. There's always going to be somebody that's going to outrank you. And I knew that. And I learned that even with my cellie that removed me, he outranked me. He was the authority in charge. I was his second in command. And he did what he had to do for himself, to reposition himself to become a C. He had life. He had nothing else to lose. And in the process, he got rid of me in order to make himself look good and make his resume look good. And I think he finally earned his position and his membership. Finally being inducted. But still, it didn't take me getting removed and pushed away by my own people. I was already recognizing that everything we were saying, a lot of the times, like drafting up certain filters or certain, mandates towards people, like towards the people or towards individuals. I started realizing, like, man, it's just the way we word things and the way we make it sound. We're just persuading the people to believe it. But in all actuality, the COC positions, I started learning right before my removal. I was like, man, all we're doing is just finding incredible and creative ways to convince the people to believe our agenda. Like, we're not even giving the people room for say so. Not one person when I was locked up actually challenged any filter or any mandate or any implementation that the household would implement and circulate. They would just take it, sign their name, sign their cells, and pass it on and just live by it. And I used to tell myself, like, man, all this is mental control. It's mind control. We instill so much fear through this violence, through these removals, that we haven't gave the people an opportunity to speak out. A year before my removal, trust me, I seen all the bad. I was already discouraged. But the one thing that discouraged me the most is when my cousin passed away. When they unalived my cousin, and it happened to be Northerners over street regiment taxes. So like I said, I went all these years putting in work, doing what I had to do, fulfilling my duties and my agendas and fulfilling my responsibilities. And the one time I request something to the back, I requested it to Mondo and I requested it to the street regiment. I was like, the individuals who took my cousin's life over street taxes when my cousin was no longer part of their life, when he has no idea what street taxes are, he has no idea what prison politics are, what a street regiment is. He was a family man who felt he put himself in a position where he needed to make some extra money to take care of his kids. They tried to tax him. He disagreed with it because he thought he was just getting punked. And they took his life for it because he beat both of them up. And they came back a few days later and took his life. I want these individuals dealt with for red on red crime because my cousin was still a Northerner. You know what they said? You know what Mondo wrote me from Corcoran Shoe? He said, hey, bro, that's street business, bro. It's none of your business. Sorry what happened to your cousin, but there's nothing we could do about that. He didn't pay his taxes. That was the moment I got destroyed. It wasn't because my people destroyed me. It was because everything that I was living for, everything that I was sacrificing for, the people and the hand that I represent, the cause and struggle that I represented, that I was dedicated to catch life for and do life for, destroyed me, destroyed my spirit, destroyed me mentally to tell me that my cousin wasn't worth nothing but an 8-ball. And now my cousin's not here no more. He's buried underneath a tombstone in dirt because of street taxes. And he had no part of this lifestyle. He had been out of the lifestyle 8 years. Married, had kids. It's just the business that he was running flipped. It failed. He lost his business, so he needed to make some extra money to make some rent, to take care of his babies. All he wanted to do was buy his kids that day some McDonald's. So he went, copped a little ball, tried to flip it so he can pay his bills, pay his car note, and take his kids out to eat. That's what destroyed me. So no, do I miss it? There's a lot of essences and there's a lot of circumstances that, yes, I do miss. I love the concept of brotherhood. I loved what I lived for. Trust me, I won't deny that. It's undoubtedly true that I won't deny that. But on the same token, that I was becoming smarter as I was growing up. See, that's what people are starting to forget. Is like when we're young, we don't know no better. We think we do. We act like we do. We portray ourselves to be like we know better, but we don't know no better. Back then, I didn't know no better, but I thought I knew it all. And that's the problem with the youth nowadays as well. So now that I'm in this position, you got to remember, I still identify as a Northern Rider, but I'm not on YouTube promoting it. I'm not on YouTube encouraging the youth to say, hey, man, don't go to the mainline, man. It's bad politics, bro. Come over here. Grass is greener. All those dumb terminologies. No. I'm out here showing my brothers that I still in contact with, like, hey, bro, there's a better life out here for us, brother, other than going back to prison and just doing the same politics over and over again and fighting one another over and over again, destroying each other all over again, brutalizing each other over irrelevant nonsense that one individual is making up, or we're all making up as we go along year after year after year. When it's only becoming detrimental to our growth and our health and our welfare. And it's restricting us from ever gaining the concept of freedom that we always wanted, to be liberated mentally, to be liberated physically, to finally be free to do as we please and live the life that we want, instead of under gang ideologies and gang concepts and gang mentalities. So no. And then I even got put on site by most of my own homies. But I still push my agenda to encourage those that say, you know what, for all my fellow brothers that still are on my side, which is a lot of them, hey, bro, leave all that nonsense alone, bro. It's time to come home, and it's time to do good. It's time to do right. It's time to be successful. It's time to put on that suit and tie and start being businessmen. I heard this saying the other day, and this is why, based on the fact that, he asked me, why do I see the bad things now? The thing is, I see the bad things now, but I've always seen the bad things. But like I said, prison is about survival. I had to do what I had to do to make it out. I had to do what I had to do to make sure I wasn't victimized again. I had to do what I had to do to make sure I was in a position where nobody could hurt me and I couldn't lose my life. But I've always recognized the bad. I always recognized the immorality that was faced within the penal system when it comes to politics and gangs. But one man can't really make a difference in jail. It's already set in stone that prison gangs will run prison societies. I can't do nothing to change that. But what I can do is what I'm doing out here to the youth that actually have open ears and willing to listen to me. So like I said, I heard this saying. There was a kid at the beach and a bunch of starfish, flooded the sand from the ocean. So this guy sees this kid walking through all the sand, and he was grabbing a starfish one at a time, and he was throwing them back into the ocean. But there was thousands and thousands of starfish. So the guy walks up to the kid, and he goes, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm throwing the starfish back into the water. I'm trying to save them." And then the guy looks at the whole beach, and we're talking about miles of sand miles of sand filled with starfish. And he tells the kid, hey, man, you're not going to be able to get all these starfish in there in time. A lot of them ain't going to survive. So what difference does it make? The kid looked at him, thought about it, and then continued throwing the starfish. So the guy asked, hey, man, what are you doing? And he picks up a starfish and he shows the man and he throws it in the water and he goes, for that one, I just made a difference, though. And the kid kept going. See, that's the basis of what I'm doing on this YouTube now, is that I recognize the good and bad back then, and I recognize the good and bad now. For one, I'm only telling my prison stories and my experiences. For two, I'm actually not here to justify them. I'm actually here pointing out the flaws and the errors in my ways and the flaws and errors of the ways of individuals that these individuals are going to have to answer to one day. So if I can open up the eyes and the mind for one kid, then I made the biggest difference. But it didn't take me getting removed, and it didn't take the betrayal that my people gave towards me on behalf of my cousin's situation to open my eyes. My eyes are open a long time ago. I just had to do what I had to do in prison to survive to make it home. And now that I'm home and I ain't got to worry about that betrayal, I ain't got to worry about that brainwashing and all that propaganda and being told what to do, when to do, and how to do it, I have the opportunity to make a difference. And if I can, I will. So hopefully I answered your question to the best of my ability. Thank you for asking me an honest question, and I really appreciate that. So with that being said, like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.